Hey, IAs, and welcome to the Adjuster Talk podcast. This podcast is powered by Royal Adjusting. If you're a new, aspiring, or veteran property adjuster, head over to royaladjustingservices.com and join the roster, because you know what? You just might get some work and you might get to talk to Jason Heenan at some point, only if you're being bad. You might not want to hear from Jason if you get on his roster. That's probably a bad sign. But welcome to the Adjuster Talk podcast by IA Path. I'm your host, Chris Stanley, and I'm joined by the founder of this podcast and my co-host, Jason Heenan. Now, Jason, we talked about hurricanes in a previous episode. We are almost to hurricane season. What is something Royal Adjusting does maybe differently that you think maybe your competition doesn't to get ready?
Yeah, you bet. We believe in preparation, and just in that vein of thought, the competition, it has no bearing on our thoughts. We're coming in, we're making sure that the adjustments made, from the spring demand with the wind and the tornado, and the floods, just the different weather events in the spring, almost always usher in something similar for hurricane system. It just seems a hurricane season. It just seems like the systems are all connected, or somehow Mother Nature just talks. And so when that happens, we definitely make adjustments to our employees. If we need to bring the base up, we bring the base up. If we came in with too many people, we'll bring it down, which is usually pretty rare. So making human resources changes, just making sure that if the storm does come in, or when the storm does come in for that matter, that we're able to handle the volume on the front end, and then we can play catch up on the file examiners and such on the back. But how you accept your claims and the quality of your customer service, I guess getting a hurricane off to a good start is imperative. If you're going to have a good storm, it needs to start good.
Awesome. Now, for those who are listening and watching, what we do at Adjuster Talk is we bring in a panel of veteran adjusters and appraisers to help you with all the different things you're going to face as a new adjuster or in growing your business and career. So today we're joined by Matthew Allen in AdjusterTV studios of AdjusterTV, by Brad Fancher of IA Path. He is the director of training now at IA Path, also the instructor for auto and heavy equipment. And TJ Johnson is with us as well, out of Dallas with the Lakers hat, because she's a fan of an ex-player, so we'll give her some grace there. But she is an expert on desk claims. So if you're like sitting here and you're going, I want to be a property adjuster, I want to be an auto adjuster, I want to be a desk adjuster, we want somebody here representing you and give you an answer about the topic based on the way that you envision your career going. And so that's why we have such a diverse panel here. And today's topic really needs some diverse answers. And that's why I preface it so strongly today. We want to talk about, how do you balance claims and family as an independent adjuster? That is a topic that TJ last episode said, we got to talk about that, Chris. We can't play around. We got to talk about it because it's a serious issue in our industry. So that's going to be the topic today. And if that's you, if you're wondering how in the world can I balance having a family and claims in whatever situation you find yourself in, you're going to get a lot out of this episode, because I know a lot of us here on this call really care about family and quality of life. Before we get to that topic, though, we have to have our icebreaker question. Although all of us are expert speakers and love to talk for hours on end about anything, we do want to prime the topic. So I'm going to start with TJ, since this episode is her idea. TJ, what is the thing that surprised you the most about being an independent adjuster when you first got started?
The relationships that I've built. I've only been deployed by one IA firm in my entire 6-year career. And when I got my first shot, and it was a desk deployment, actually all of my deployments have been desk deployments, but to know that my work product, my attitude, how my peers receive me, and my level of commitment to stay on the deployment, even though my very first one, believe it or not, did not pay a lot of money. I wasn't making what the typical industry standard was. So for me, the trade-off was, let me come in, let me prove myself, let me show you what I can do. Let me earn your trust so that you can put me in a position so that I can make the money that I desire. So for the last 5 years, I've only been deployed by one IA firm to where the vendor managers call my cell phone personally, not the deployment group, the vendor managers. They call me personally and say, hey, I have something for you. Is this something you're interested in? Based on your work with us in the past, we appreciate you and we want to pay you this. Is this acceptable? So to hear that from someone who thought enough of me and heard about my work product and my work attitude and everything, and they called me personally and asked me for work, like that was really huge. And I just didn't know, especially being in Texas, this is a super competitive market. There are over 20-something thousand licensed Texas adjusters, whether you live here or in other parts of the country. And to know that who I am and what I stand for and what I do stood out to the vendor managers and the firm itself. So that was probably the biggest shock.
So did you expect to kind of bounce around firm to firm? Is that kind of what your expectation was prior to getting that opportunity?
Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I panicked when my initial deployment ended because I was not prepared. I made a lot of mistakes during my first year as an IA that I learned once I jumped back in what to do, what not to do. So that was what I understood originally from people that I talked to, that, okay, well, you have to go where the work is. Well, I kind of flipped it around is, well, the work now comes to me. I don't have to look for the work.
Yeah, Tony Robbins talks about get money chasing you rather than you chasing money. And so that's a big deal. So I think that's huge for people. And I don't usually try to stop so long on an icebreaker question, but I think that's huge that you took a lower paying role, because a lot of us here don't take those stupid roles. It's ruining the industry. But in fact, it was your stepping stone in. And that's a big part of our philosophy at IA Path is use what's available to you to crack open that door, whether that's an active position, I'll say it, whether that's an active position on a desk side, or whether that's auto claims daily because you think you could do better money than property, you're trying to ignore it. Use what you can get to wedge open that door and then bust it down. And so whether that, go ahead.
Chris, let me say this as well. And that was exactly what the situation was. Now, mind you, I had already come into the IA side with 10 years experience already. So for most people who are already tenured, they're going to look down at a lower paying position. I understood the bigger picture. The bigger picture was for me to get to the higher tiered pay. So in order for me to do that, I have to show them that I'm worth that, as opposed to coming into a higher tier and I bomb. I was okay with being humble, again, with 10 years experience as a trainer for a carrier, all of that. I was okay with that. And within 4 months, it's like, okay, yeah, we need to put you here. And it's been up ever since.
Awesome. All right, Matt, over to you. Same question.
Yeah, I think when I first got started, the thing that kind of surprised me, well, there's a lot of things that are surprising, but the main thing, and I think that kept me in it, or one of the big things, was the incentive to figure out how to be more efficient and be faster, and recognizing that, well, all is said and done, what the carrier wants is they want these claims closed, but that was the first half of it. So I had an incentive to try to be fast, but then I recognized also that there was an incentive to also be good, have a good file, try to, no misdamage, have a file that's easy to look through, make sense to the file reviewer, it slides right through. And no matter what, however the claim is settled or not settled, if it's denied or whatever, that the homeowner felt like they got a fair shake. When I figured that out, I mean, it was skyrocket from there, first call list for sure, because it's the trifecta. People always say, well, you can be fast, you can be good, or you can be nice, pick two. And I'm like, I'm picking all three. And it worked.
Love it. Love it. All right. I think we're going over to Brad. Brad, what's the number one thing that surprised you about being an independent adjuster when you first got started?
I think it was probably maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks after I started. I actually had an adjuster. I received an assignment to go and look. It was a fire that started at a body shop up in Evansville, Indiana. And of course, every vehicle was already at the shop to be repaired. And on top of that, additional damages because of the fire. You talk about, I mean, I'm just 3 weeks into this. So, you know, unrelated prior damage, appraisal estimates, and all of these things. At first I wanted to run just because it seemed more than what I had the capacity to do. I just felt so lost, but I just determined, no, I'm not going to run from this. I'm going to learn. Even if I fail at it, I'm going to learn from it. So through that, I learned quite a bit. But then I had an inside adjuster, you know, the actual adjuster on the claim, call me and begin to ask me certain questions. So what you know, related to the damage, I mean, she was asking me, what are your thoughts? What do you think we should do? And it just surprised me at the I'm going to use the word authority or confidence that these you know, adjusters were putting in little old me, appraiser. And at that point I realized, hey, I better know something more than just, you know, bumpers and fenders here. I better put on a you know, a professional you know, mindset, if you will. In other words, I don't need to be just task oriented. I need to really understand the full scope of the claim. And I was surprised at the confidence that they were putting in us and the level of authority, you know, that they were giving to us. And of course, it's different from carrier to carrier. I mean, you've got some adjusters that are former adjusters, field adjusters, field appraisers, and you know, they know a lot about the repair process. And then you've got some that know nothing really about they just know policy. And so they're really relying on us. That I've had so many surprises in this industry, but that was probably the very first thing that really struck me. You know, I've got to know more than just my estimating software and, you know, how much repair time I give to this fender. I need to really have a good scope and gauge on just all the dynamics, or as many, at least as many as I can understand in this entire claim. So
I remember when Brad
and
had that realization. I remember us talking
yeah,
on the phone. You're like, they took my advice. They wanted to honestly know what I thought. Like,
right.
don't they know? I'm like, no, they don't all know, Brad. They do not all know. What? So that is a huge surprise. So
Yeah.
Jason, over to you. The question being, what is the number one thing that surprised you about being an independent adjuster?
Okay, Chris. Just almost in the same thought category as everybody else. It was really surprising. You know, I was a licensed IA, but went to work for a Nationwide for a bit, and they were a good company and contributed a bit to my skills. And going from a 37.5 work week with scheduled lunches and scheduled meetings and that kind of thing, and then going to a true independent role, it was completely, it was, I think the hardest part was just understanding how to prioritize, how to work all day, just those things that you've read about, but not necessarily like you might have practiced working hard prior to that, but just remaining focused on one set or one part of your life so heavily, which will probably lead very well into the show of where we're headed. But just learning how to focus on one priority relentlessly. And that is not easy for most people. You know, our minds are not made to focus on one thing. We like to be happy. We like to do things we enjoy, and we like things to be easy. But it takes a bit to get used to recognizing what challenges are and then figuring out how to overcome them. And I think that's the most surprising thing, was just the number of different problems you had to do to get over in order to get to money making activities, or get to back to your phone calls, that kind of stuff. Just your first claim, it took 5 or 6 hours probably. And I can remember making a roof diagram was just such a challenging thing for the first one, but 20 or 25 later, you're just like, man, why was I feeling so much fear sitting in front of a laptop? That's so weird. But just learning to deal with those everyday challenges in an independent role is surprisingly difficult, especially for new people.
Yeah, I like the common theme here, which is, it seems like to me, is that a big part of success in our industry is based on, and I'm paraphrasing everybody's answer here, the relationships that you build through the work that you perform. And so your work really speaks for itself, which I can totally agree with that. I remember my father-in-law telling me, and some people hate this phrase in this industry and some people love it. Take it for what it is. I think it just depends on how you interpret it. But you got to fake it till you make it, meaning you don't do bad work. You don't make bad decisions purposefully, but there are things you will not know and you have to push through and do. And then your work product will speak for you moving forward. As that work product improves, better and better relationships will form. As you're faking not being the true expert that none of us are, even I'm 13 years in, Brad's still teaching me stuff, and he was my student. Like, how does that happen? I have no idea, but it does all the time. So I think that for me was huge as well. So I love those answers. But let's get to this topic here, because I think we're going to spend some time on it, quite a bit of time, and we're going to start off with Brad. And Brad, I know this is something we talk a lot about, and really, I want to know. How do I phrase this? In your life with a wife and kids, what has been the key thing for you to be able to balance claims and family?
Just when you think you've figured it out, you have to go refigure. So, wow. This probably deserves like an entire series of podcasts. But so, man, where in the world do I start with this? I think I'm always trying to respond correctly to this, because first of all, you're in a service industry. You're in a problem-solving industry. You are in a fast-paced. I mean, we're handling losses. We're not visiting people because they want to build their dream home. We're visiting them because they've got a hole in their roof or their car's banged up. So there's just so many variables that shape this industry that create a particular demand on us as adjusters and appraisers. And so if you are success driven, if you're just wired, there's only one goal I have in mind, and that's just to win or to be successful. It's very hard for you and for people like that to say no. That has been the hardest lesson for me, because the word no to me doesn't mean, for me, oftentimes when I tell someone no, I feel like I'm telling them, no, I don't want to do it, rather than no, I can't do it. And that's been hard for me to shape in my brain, and of course there's this, and I know we're going to talk about fears in the future. There's always this fear that this could be, if I tell them no, that this could be my last assignment from them, so, but what I am learning is that thankfully there are firms where real humans are leading them, and they understand the human factor, the human side of this industry. that there's only 24 hours in a day. There's only one of me, you know. And I think just being honest throughout the process. I'm still learning this, I really am. I'll be 4 years in January, and it seems like I'm always having to recalibrate. Just recently, I ended, or I'm going to say push pause on quite a few relationships with quite a few firms in hopes of claiming more of my life. And it feels like I didn't even, it feels like I made no changes with the claim load. So I think maybe, can I add this? I think being honest with your family, and I've had to do this a few times, just say, listen, my heart is right here. This is my first priority. I know that it looks like I'm giving all of me to my business. That is not my goal. That is not my desire. It's not what I want to do. And just understanding that, there's some times where I just have to tell my family, listen, this week, you're not going to see me much, but I am going to make it up to you, So there is this whole focus on quantity and then quality. It's just, again, this is a huge topic, that it's so deep. That this topic is so deep, and we're all going to have different, thoughts about this. But I think just making it a matter of importance is where you start. The fact that it's even a concern, a priority to you, is where you start. And if I had to give a quick answer, just learn that it's okay to say no. You don't have to say yes to everything, but how about this? Don't say no too many times. Explain yourself. If you're having to say no all the time, then you've got to make some adjustments. I think Jason alluded to it in a different podcast. If you're having to reject assignments so much, maybe you're on too many rosters or something. Something's not going right. So I don't know if I truly answered that, but
It was all
that's
good
what
stuff.
I've got to
all
say.
Good stuff. If I could recap what Brad said, and not to take away from anything he said, but just to make sure that someone has some soundbite to take away, it's be open with your family and make them a priority, and that's where you start. And then from there, you're going to have to figure out your own situation. That's what I'm hearing from Brad, and I love it. And everything else, the context and the struggle, it's so real. I love it, Brad. Thanks for sharing. Jason, you're next up. So what's a big thing for you? And I know you fought the good fight for a long time now in this industry, balancing family and claims. So what's some things that you've learned that you can give us as we try to make family and claims work?
Chris, there is a practical approach to this. And of course, I'm going to integrate some of the stuff we talk about at work at Royal here. But there's 168 hours in each 7-day period. And that's undeniable. It's a fact. So in order to find balance, if you have gotten your life so far out of balance that you're having to, say no and disappoint, different groups of people, it means that you're not spending your time wisely, not wisely. You don't have enough of it, basically, or you're not organized enough to handle everything you signed up for. Understanding the time clock and understanding how to use your hours and being able to make time, and there's a group of people out there who knows exactly what I'm talking about. In order to maintain that balance, you have to force yourself to do some different activities or find ways to consolidate activities, things like that. But I say you have to use your time clock practically, learn how to do that, and learn how to use your time to be meaningful towards your priorities. I'll refer to Warren Buffett here. He gives great, practical, easy to remember advice. And his advice is, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have no priorities. And so just make sure you categorize your activity under one of your 3 priorities that you have going in your life. And that would be the only way to force balance whenever you're in a stressful and demanding work environment.
Awesome. Love that. All right, Matt, over to you. What are some important lessons you've learned by being a claims adjuster about making claims and family work?
Well, I will say I think my answer is going to be geared a little bit more towards like maybe the incoming generation. Maybe they haven't gotten married yet, and they're trying to balance social life and dating life. Because I started doing claims when I was like 28, and I wasn't married. And at the time I didn't have a girlfriend, and I dove straight in off the deep end into claims, which took up, 5 to 9 or 12 months of my year. And I can tell you right now, when you go on a date with somebody and then the next weekend, it's like, hey, you want to go do something else? And then you're like, set up a date. And then like that morning, pilot calls. It's like, hey, bud, we got a hailstorm up in St. Louis. Y'all want to go? And yeah, well, yeah, of course I do. And then having to call that person back and be like, yeah, so listen, I'm going to have to take a rain check on that one. Oh, so like next weekend? Well, maybe this fall. So that kind of, at first it was like, well, all right, whatever. I was really enjoying working. And again, that thing I kind of touched on at the beginning with the incentive, the thing that surprised me was really, really drove me. So I went really hard in claims for the first 10 or 12 years of my career, and dated off and on, and had people that like kind of got into it and wanted to. So it wasn't like a total, like I was never having a girlfriend, but I had to make an executive decision right around I think 2011. In the spring, in the downtime, I went to Costa Rica for a couple of weeks and just to go surfing and just decompress. And I write every day in just a journal, just making kind of lists and like, what am I gonna do today? And this is what happened, and da 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 da. Just kind of like, not like a Dear Diary. I feel so, Anyway, so
We'll get that.
right. So it's a way to kind of do some self-talk, right? So I'm talking to myself and I'm like, what I'm doing is not working, right? Even though I'm successful as an adjuster and the work comes to me, right? I don't have to chase the money. I have to if I really don't want to do something, I have to say no. And that's how so I decided that I was going to take a break that fall, 2011, and just go. I play the guitar, so one thing I'd always want to do since I was a kid. This is kind of a little silly, but it ended up being a good thing because I was like, well, I want to go and just take some some advanced guitar training at a school full of musicians and just unplug from the claims world and so I did. So I signed up for the School Musicians Institute in Hollywood, which spending any time in Hollywood is, let alone a semester, but is what it is. And the first day at orientation, I met my wife, the person who's going to be my wife. So in my situation, I got into such a deep groove, such a deep, the walls of my little my path were so high that in order to get out of it, I had to put the brakes on full. And the companies that I worked for all the time, even though I told them, I was like, I'm unavailable until next spring. I'm unavailable until next spring. Take me off. They kept calling me, Matt, we need you so bad. I'm in the middle of this semester or whatever, taking these guitar classes and whatever. And I was like, I can't. I'm not available. But there was a part of me inside well, maybe I could sneak away. I can't. I just can't do it. So I had to really, really break that cycle every year where you go out at March, April, May, and you're hot and heavy in it until Halloween, maybe just before Thanksgiving, if there's not a hurricane. And then Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you do the family loop, you go visit everybody, and then January rolls around, and you start making plans. Well, maybe I'll do a little vacation or something. Maybe there's a little 10-day winter storm that you pick up. And then you start the thing all over again. By the time you like kind of get like settled in back at home, it's March, April, May, and you're off again. And so I was like, I have given like an entire decade of my life to claims, right? Just saying yes to everything all the time. And that was, so I would say, I think for, you know, having a balance, you know, these days, well, you know, after Dee Marine, I got married, she just came with me to wherever I went for the most part, except for a couple of, she didn't come with me on Sandy. But I would say there's got to keep your eye on that piece. I mean, I'm the kind of person that I like to work, you know, 168 hours. It's not enough hours in the week. I mean, it's just not enough to all the things I want to do. But it's one of those things that a person like me, who I think was perfectly suited for cat property work, because that incentive, you know, I just go out and I can make as much money as I can make. But that's what you're telling me, right? Until the claims dry up, I'm going to be the last guy, right? That has to be tempered with, you know, keeping your eye on the big picture. Is there an end game? I spent, you know, probably 14 years doing cat property almost exclusively. Whereas, I mean, and Jason, you probably can talk a little bit about this, but like the vast majority of people, they're in it for 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years before they jump into something else, or they become a manager, or they do daily, or they stay home, right? They get sick of it. I was like, I love it. I love to travel. I love to go eat food in different places. I love to, you know, it's a thing. If I have a year where I'm not getting in the car and like doing a long road trip, I get like antsy. So, but so I would say, think about your career and your adult life, you know, especially if you're younger, you're getting started in your mid to late 20s or your early 30s. Think of it as in terms of like, what's this work going to do for me? What other doors is it going to open for me? How can I really, really leverage, you know, the potential earning power that I have doing cat property? And, you know, maybe just plan on doing that for 3, 4, 5 years, something like that. 5, 6, yeah, I'm 8, 10 years. And then take it and then aggressively save all that extra money that you make, and then slide into a leadership role or trainer, or, you know, or do something a little bit, or, you know, do daily, stay home and do dailies. Daily adjusters, I think, probably have a lot more potential to make more money than cap adjusters do over the long term. But that would be my advice, you know, is to just keep your eye on that big picture. What's your retirement going to look like, and how are you going to get there? And it's not going to be 20 years of cat property. Shouldn't be.
Love it, man. TJ, you were up, and I know you got lots of family, but you got lots of zeros that be chasing you all the time. So I want to know what is something that you can tell others that you've learned about how to balance claims and family?
For me, it's the F: faith, family, finances, and follow-up. Okay. A lot of what I have to say, I think Brad tapped into my computer and stole my my speech, but kind of to piggyback off of what Brad said and the F's that I live by. Faith is something that's super big to me and super big to my family. So that helps keep me mentally, spiritually, physically balanced, because I'm all over the place in so many different roles besides claims. I do a lot. That's another show. Family, I do have a lot of family. I have adult children. I have a 7-year-old nephew that I'm raising, that I've been raising since he was 8 months old. So to totally like start over with the parenting thing in this day and age when my kids were born in the 90s is totally mind blowing. And I'm also a grandparent. I have 2 grandkids. So to be able to try to toggle all of that, faith first, again, that's important. Family, finances, obviously this is why I do what I do, and follow up. So the follow up in the family, those two are conjoined for me. My family, I'm very transparent with them about what I do, right? So they wanted to, so this may be 2 weeks ago, they wanted to know, what is it exactly that you do? Because my room, my office is called the war room, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 6 screens in my office. So it literally looks like a command center. Like during the day, all of my screens are up, my door is locked, do not disturb. So they wanted to know, what is it that you do? It's okay to kind of let your family into your world and let them see what you do to help them understand why is all of your time being consumed. Now, in some environments, you may not be able to do that or is limited. With me working desk claims, it's a lot easier for me to let them see why am I shut in a room between 10 and 12 hours a day. And God forbid, if I have a liability boot camp, that's another 3 hours of instruction and 2 hours in grading homework. So I opened that door into my world. I let them see so that they can understand why I'm away or why there's certain things I just can't do because I just do not have the time. The follow-up, as I said, those two, family and follow-up, are married. I think that was Matt that was saying about claims between March and like what, maybe October, November-ish. So between really March and September, I'm hitting it hard. I am absent from everything, just about. But because I've allowed my family to understand my environment, and my family, they're all spoiled because they like the benefit of what happens when I'm not working. We're in the boxes at the Maverick games. We are in the boxes at the Cowboys games. Every first Sunday, we have a sit-down dinner. Everybody comes over to the house and we have Sunday dinner, family time, game night. So for me, even though that one day does not really compensate for the other 5 or 6 that I'm away, but when I am giving my family my time, they have all of my time. So for me, no cell phone, no social media, because I want to make sure that I promise that when I had time, that it's your time. So now that I have time, it is your time. And it's whatever it is that they want to do, however we choose the fellowship, whether we go on a one-day road trip. So we're going to medieval times next week, I think. This is something that the kids have been wanting to do for a while. But again, so for me, the follow-up is staying true to my word. When I say that I'm going to do something like, hey, understand, I can't show up for that because it's during my work hours, but can we do this? And 9 out of 10, they're okay with it. So just that transparency and allowing them to just kind of see a day in the life of, and it helps them understand tremendously. So not just am I on a deployment, my entire family is on a deployment with me as well.
Awesome. I love that. Love that. And then I do think Brad stole your script. I think you guys swapped pages beforehand, and you guys have been very aligned in this episode and in the past few, actually. So this is something that I am extremely passionate about. This is probably what I spend more time thinking about. The only thing I probably spend more time thinking about than independent adjusting and how to help people in their career is, how do you live a life that matters? How do you claim your life? We talk about it a lot, but that is something that I am probably way too obsessed about thinking about. And so for me, the big thing that I found while working through claims and then working through IA Path was I had to look through a lens, and people have kind of touched on it, everything I'm about to say, but I'm just gonna say a little bit different. I found that I had to look through a different lens, that there are different things in life. We typically call it health, we call it money and time, things of that nature. And I really sat and I thought about it, and I said, well, what is it that makes a life well lived? What makes it where you can enjoy it? And so I found that those 4 life currencies, and so that's what I call them. They're life currencies, 4 things that I can spend my time doing. And it's money. That's the one we all think about as adjusters, especially. We're all, like Matt said, we're pushing hard for that money. That's the measure of success that most of us look at. The other one is time. How much time do I have? I can spend only so much time doing claims and only so much time being with family. So that is a currency I'm spending. And then the other 2 are energy. So that's your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. And then the last one is your relationships. And so that goes from God, that goes to your family, that goes even to your work partners, that goes to me and Matt Allen. We have a relationship, and I'm spending time with Matt. I'm spending that currency with him rather than investing in my relationship with my wife. I had to choose where I spent that relationship currency. today. And so if you look at life more in that different approach, that, hey, I am choosing today how I spend my currencies, my life currencies. Today, I'm making money for 12 hours, as TJ said, but with these 8 hours, I'm investing in my family, and I'm just not sleeping today. Now, that what did she do? She exchanged her health, her energy currency, in exchange for more time with her family or investing in a relationship. But if you're aware that you have 4 different bank accounts, so to speak, that you're spending out of, you'll be more aware and cautious and more intentional about how you're spending those. So time, energy, money, relationships, and energy, that's how I look at it. And for me, once I realized that, and not even those terms, once I realized there's a lot of different buckets here. It's not just about making money. That doesn't fill the void that I feel. No matter how much money I make, Jason and I have talked about this off air. You can make $200,000. You wake up tomorrow, there's nothing left. You didn't have any family relationships being built. You still have no time. You own everything maybe you want to own, but you're still like, what happened? 2 years of my life is gone, and I made money, sure, but I'm bankrupt in every other area of my life. We don't want that for you at IAPath. We don't want that for you here at Adjuster Talk. We want you to invest in those different life currencies because that's the only way you can actually claim your life, is if you're building up currency in all of those, as Matt found through his journey. And we've all had to find through our journey. Whoa, time out. I need to invest in some other things. I'm fat in this one bank account, my literal bank account, but I don't have the relationships I want in other areas. So that's my answer. That's what I found. That's what I sit around thinking about. That's eventually one day going to be a book. I don't know if I'll ever finish it. That's what I feel super passionate about, though. So, all right. Anything as we wrap up from you guys, as we wrap up this episode? I hope you all got a lot out of this, but anything to top it off, starting with you, Jason?
Pass.
He passed. All right, TJ, is Dr. J going to grab the ball and slam dunk this with some final thoughts, TJ?
No, the buzzer has sounded and I'm going to the bench, but I do want to say that this was a very productive and very needed conversation. And shout out to all the panelists. Like, I've gotten something from each and every one of you during this conversation. And this is a conversation that should continue, because some people feel that they have to either choose to make money and abandon their family, or be there for their family and not make the money that you desire to do so. And you can do both, but you have to allow your family, allow them in, take them on the journey with you. You'd be surprised. You need that support.
So much for her being on the bench. She just delivered the buzzer beater. All right, Brad, final thoughts?
Yeah, of course, I'm humbled that I would be a guest, but I'm over here taking notes myself. I'm using Post-it notes just because, I guess my final word would be just stay teachable. That's what I always tell all the new appraisers that come in, just if you're used to being the one that knows it all in the room, that you're going to struggle in this industry. Just know what you know, but just stay in that place of being, in that place of ready to grow, whether it's you being the business owner. Of course, we're talking more about the things that matter, beyond the company and everything. And that would be, and something that I feel like I always have to tell new appraisers is you can't forget you've chosen to launch a business. Okay, this is very different from filling out an application and getting the job, be here 8 o'clock Monday morning, go home at 5. It's just different. Now, if you want that, you can go get that, but you're launching a business. You're building a business, and there's just certain dynamics when it comes to launching that business. And so, great topic. Again, we could probably talk for hours upon hours on this subject.
Absolutely. Matt, final thoughts before we close out?
Well, my final thought, all I really want to know is as clearly a 29-year-old woman, how you manage to have so many businesses and careers and so much experience and grandkids all at the same time. I applaud you, TJ. I applaud you.
So just FYI,
28,
guys,
28.
I'll be 45 in 2 weeks.
I don't believe you, but that's okay. It's all right.
She paid him to say that with her zeros. She needed a mental boost in her energy life currency. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here on the Adjuster Talk podcast. I hope that this helps you walk your path and claim your life. And until next week, get out there, get it done, because it's claim time.